There's something deeply strange about the way we love. We can say, "I love you" so easily to others, to a spouse, a child, a friend. But how many times in your life have you sat quietly, looked inward, and said, "I love myself"? Even though I'm not perfect, even though I've made mistakes. Not very often, right? The truth is, there are seasons in life when we don't just forget to love ourselves. We actively turn against ourselves. We hate ourselves for failing. We resent our weaknesses. We punish ourselves for not living up to someone else's expectations, or worse, our own. And then we begin to judge ourselves harshly. Again and again, those thoughts cut deep, until they corrode our confidence, drain our spirit, and leave us feeling empty inside. I've met people who are kind, generous, and compassionate to everyone around them, but at night, lying alone in the dark, they whisper. People often say that self-love is selfish. But in the Buddhist teachings, compassion begins within. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't truly love others if your own heart is bleeding from unhealed wounds. The Buddha once said, "By oneself is wrong done. By oneself is one defiled. By oneself is wrong left undone. By oneself is one purified." Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one can purify another. So, how do we learn to love ourselves, not with vague affirmations, but with real daily practice? How do we forgive ourselves for our mistakes? How do we stop the habit of harsh self-criticism and begin to see beauty even in the imperfect parts of who we are? If you've ever found it hard to treat yourself with gentleness, if you've been giving everything to others but feeling emptier each day, if you're trying to rediscover your worth after heartbreak or self-doubt, then this video is for you. Let's sit down together like old friends and listen to the Buddha's quiet wisdom. Not rules, not doctrines, just gentle truths, the kind that invite you to soften. And from there, begin a new journey. A journey back home to yourself. A journey of self-compassion and healing. A journey to live a life that feels lighter, kinder, and more whole. Let's begin. Part 1. Buddhist truths about self-love. 1. Don't believe the labels you've placed on yourself. From a young age, we're given all sorts of labels. Our name, our gender, our accomplishments, our flaws. They slowly become the identity we believe we are. As we grow older, we unconsciously add more labels. Over time, these statements sink deep into our mind. They stop being passing thoughts and become internal truths defining how we see ourselves. But the Buddha teaches there is no fixed permanent self. All is a flow of body, mind, and karma. That means you are not a bad person. You are simply someone who may have acted out of pain or confusion. You're not broken. You're just in a chapter that feels heavy. Think of it like this. A cup of tea may have some bitterness at the bottom, but that doesn't mean the entire pot is ruined. Your view of yourself should be like that of a kind gardener, nurturing a withering plant, not discarding it. So the first step to loving yourself is to stop believing those labels. You are not the one who always fails. You are not the unlovable one. You are simply someone who's still learning to become your truest self with honesty, effort, and care. 2. Learn to accept mistakes as part of growth. Someone once said, mistakes are the tuition we pay for wisdom. On the journey of life, no one is free from error. Even sages, saints, and monks have stumbled and fallen. But instead of denying or punishing themselves, they chose to learn and grow deeper through the lesson. We often define our entire worth by 1 or 2 mistakes. I betrayed someone. I hurt someone I love. I missed my chance. Then we carry that shame like a heavy coat, refusing to take it off. But the Buddha taught no one washes their body with mud. Likewise, no one cleanses the mind by clinging to regret. Mistakes are part of the path, but don't stay stuck in them. Rise up, dust yourself off, and walk forward. Just like a tree continues to grow after every storm. Accepting your mistakes doesn't mean excusing them. It means recognizing them, learning from them, forgiving yourself, because you are still alive and you still have the power to do better today than you did yesterday. 3. Stop criticizing yourself. You deserve kindness. Inside each of us lives a small, harsh voice, the inner critic. It shows up when we fail, when we feel misunderstood, or when life feels too heavy. You're so stupid. Why can't you ever do things right? Nobody really loves you. Sadly, these words often wound us deeper than anything anyone else says. And the worst part, we believe them. But the Buddha never taught us to be cruel to ourselves. He taught compassion, and that begins within. Even if you've made mistakes, you still deserve love. Begin by stopping the harsh talk. When a negative thought comes, pause and ask, if my best friend said this about themselves, would I agree? You'll realize what you need is not punishment, but a gentle hand on your heart and someone to whisper, it's okay, you're still growing. Let that someone be you. 4. Believe that imperfection is beautiful. Have you ever seen a perfect leaf, a mountain without flaw, a flower with no blemish? Nature does not create perfection. Nature creates life twisted, asymmetrical, messy, and profoundly beautiful. Likewise, humans are not born to be perfect, but to be authentic. It is in imperfection that we find patience, humility, and grace. The Buddha taught, because life is impermanent, we are given the chance to grow every day. If you feel you are full of flaws, smile. That only means you still have soil in which to bloom. Growth is not a destination, it is a daily unfolding. To love yourself is not to pretend you are flawless, but to look in the mirror and say, even with all my imperfections, I choose to stay. I choose to keep learning. I choose to love myself anyway. Have you labeled yourself? Are you still punishing yourself for past mistakes? Have you forgotten that you exactly as you are still worthy of love? If so, pause for a moment. Take a slow, steady breath and say softly to yourself, I am not perfect, but I am still learning, and I still deserve love, especially from me. Part 2, saying no as a compassionate act of self-respect. 1. Why is it so hard to say no? Have you ever said yes to dinner, even though you were exhausted? Agreed to help someone with something you didn't want to do just to avoid conflict? Or maybe you sat down to meditate or rest, but ended up scrolling on your phone for hours. The truth is, it's not just hard to say no to others, it's also hard to say no to ourselves. We fear rejection. We're afraid of disappointing people. We worry we might miss out. We don't want to feel left behind. But in saying yes to everything out there, we often say no to our own stillness, our health, and the time we need for what truly matters. The Buddha taught the wise do not run in every direction. They choose the right path and remain steadfast. To stay centered, we must know when to pause and when to gently say no. 2. Saying no protects your most precious resources, time and energy. We often treat time like it's infinite, but imagine if you only had 24 energy coins a day, how would you spend them? One misplaced yes can cost you an entire evening of peace. One reluctant nod can steal away your chance to reconnect with yourself. So remember, saying no isn't selfish. It's a form of self-respect, a way of honoring your life's quiet rhythm. 3. Before saying yes, ask, why am I agreeing? Before you say yes to anything, pause. Ask yourself, am I saying yes because I truly want to, or because I'm afraid to say no? Is this coming from love or from guilt? If your answer comes from fear, it may mean you're placing someone else's comfort above your own peace. The Buddha advised before speaking or acting, reflect, is this good for me? Is this good for others? If it's not, you have the right to smile and say thank you. But today I need time for myself. 4. Practice inner discipline to say no to what's comfortable but unnecessary. Ironically, the hardest things to say no to are not always bad. They're often too pleasant. A fun gathering, a good movie, a casual shopping trip. There's nothing wrong with these. But if we always choose short-term pleasure over long-term peace, we'll never have the stillness we deeply crave. The Buddha said comfort can distract us from the true path. Discipline means choosing what's needed over what's easy, saying no to distractions so we can say yes to presence, no to scrolling so we can say yes to sleep, no to obligation so we can say yes to our inner promise. 5. Say no with kindness and clarity. Some people say, learn to say no without explaining. But in Buddhist compassion, you can say no. Gently, thank you for thinking of me, but I need to rest today. I appreciate you, but I need some time for myself right now. You don't have to be harsh, just honest. Those who truly care will understand your no. Those who don't might not honor your yes either. 6. Value your time. Like you value your money. When you have a small amount of money, you don't spend it carelessly, right? So why do we waste time something we can never get back? Time is your most sacred currency. No one knows how much they have left. And every moment spent on things that don't matter is life passing you by. So protect your time as you would protect your peace. Say no to say yes to deeper things. Rest, self-reflection, inner growth. Presence with those you truly love. 7. Remember, saying no is an act of love. Saying no isn't about rejecting others. It's about saying yes to yourself. It's about setting boundaries, preserving your energy, creating space for your spirit to breathe. The Buddha said no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. Be kind to others, but never forget to be kind to yourself. And if kindness begins with a gentle no, then that may be the first step back to true peace. Part 3, Facing Jealousy. Loving yourself without resenting others. 1. Jealousy, a difficult emotion to admit, but deeply human. Most of us don't like to say it out loud, I feel jealous. It sounds petty, shameful even. But the truth is, jealousy is one of the most human emotions. It arrives quietly, often unnoticed, when we see others living the life we wish we had. A friend who's more loved, a coworker who gets promoted, someone who seems younger, more joyful, more fulfilled. And suddenly we compare. They have what I don't. They're happy and I'm not. That's when jealousy creeps in. It doesn't scream, it whispers. And if we don't recognize it, we slowly drift away from our own self-worth, forgetting who we are beneath all that comparison. 2. The root of jealousy lies in subtle comparison and ego. According to the Buddha, jealousy isn't just a feeling, it's a symptom of ego clinging. When we believe we must be better, more successful, or more loved than others, then anyone who seems ahead of us becomes a threat to our identity. We turn against ourselves, or worse, against them. But the truth is, every person walks a unique path. Just like earth, water, fire, and air, each element is vital but cannot be compared. We were not born to compete. We were born to fulfill our own distinct purpose fully, sincerely, and in our own time. 3. No two people are the same, and that's a blessing. Even identical twins do not share the same emotions or inner world. Each of us carries different karma, life lessons, and spiritual timing. If someone is moving faster than you, perhaps they're on a different part of the road. And if you seem slower, maybe you're learning something deeper, something more enduring. No one is better than you. They are simply different from you. When you truly see this, you'll stop comparing. And instead, you'll start nurturing yourself with patience and kindness. 4. Don't compete with others. Grow beyond your past self. There's a beautiful truth. You don't need to be better than others. You just need to be better than who you were yesterday. Instead of asking, why do they have what I don't? Try asking, have I loved myself more today than yesterday? Am I living in alignment with my values? Am I moving closer to becoming the person I wish to be? When you shift focus from others to yourself, jealousy begins to dissolve, and you'll realize I'm growing in my own way. 5. Practice mudita, joy in the happiness of others. Mudita is one of the 4 immeasurable minds in Buddhism, alongside loving kindness, metta-compassion, karuna, and equanimity, upekkha. It means sympathetic joy, being happy when others are happy. It sounds simple, but it takes real practice. When you see someone succeed, instead of shrinking inside, say, may you be safe and steady. May you continue to grow and bring good to the world. Each morning, close your eyes for a minute and silently offer, may all beings be happy. May they live in peace and flourish. With time, mudita becomes a habit, and something beautiful happens. The more you celebrate others' happiness, the lighter your own heart becomes. Because you're no longer an outsider looking in. You become a participant in the joy. 6. Truly happy people don't have time to be jealous. A person who is deeply at peace, who truly values themselves, does not get shaken by appearances or status. They don't measure their life by society's expectations, but by the calm within their soul. When you love yourself deeply, you no longer need to outshine anyone. because you know I'm living my truth, not a replica of someone else's. To end this section, jealousy is a natural emotion, but you don't have to be ruled by it. You can look at it gently, smile at it, and choose differently. Choose to come home to yourself. Choose to bless, not compete. Choose to rise without needing others to fall. And in doing so, you'll see self-love doesn't mean turning away from others. It means loving others better because you've already made peace within. Part 4, healthy love in relationships, loving others without losing yourself. 1, starting a relationship is easy, maintaining 1 is where the work begins. At some point, we've all entered into a relationship. Romantic, love, friendship, family, co-workers. But something strange happens. The more we love, the easier it becomes to lose ourselves. We sacrifice, we overextend, we forget our boundaries. And sometimes love makes us forget that we too deserve to be loved, respected, and protected. The Buddha once said, "One who does not love themselves in the right way cannot truly love another fully." 2, according to the Buddha, a healthy relationship is built on 4 foundations. 1, generosity dana, not just giving gifts or money, but giving time, attention, presence, and genuine care. Putting your phone down, looking into someone's eyes and asking, "How are you really? I'm here to listen." 2, kind speech, pia vakana. Love cannot survive in silence and blame. Gentle, timely words can heal the deepest wounds. Sometimes I see how hard you've been trying means more than any grand gesture. 3, beneficial actions, adhikariya. Love is more than words. It's small acts of support, washing the dishes when your partner's tired, making tea when they're stressed, showing up in ways that say, "You matter to me." 4, sharing joy and pain, samanatata. It means being there not only in joy, but also in hardship, not walking away when they're down, loving them equally when they're shining and when they're struggling. 3, a good relationship is not where you're pampered, it's where you're allowed to be yourself. True love is where you don't need to wear a mask. You don't need to be a polished version of yourself to be accepted. You can be tired, you can be vulnerable, you can be silent and still belong. If you're constantly performing to be loved, then perhaps what you're holding on to isn't love. It's fear of loss. 4, boundaries don't weaken love. They help it grow. We often think, if I love someone, I must always be available. Always say yes, always give up what I need. But the truth is, love doesn't grow in self-erasure. It grows in mutual respect. You have the right to say, "I need time for myself. I can't do that right now. I love you, but I also need to protect my peace." If someone can't accept your boundaries, it's not because your love isn't enough. It's because their idea of love doesn't include freedom. Real love says, "I accept you, and I also accept your space." 5, loving others doesn't mean abandoning yourself. You can care for your children and care for yourself. You can support your partner and pursue your own dreams. You can listen to others and still listen to your own inner voice. That's not selfish, it's mindfulness. The Buddha taught you are your own best refuge. If you lose yourself in love, then even the most beautiful love will begin to break. 6, when you love yourself, you love others more gently. When your heart is full, you don't need to cling. When you believe in your worth, you don't need to please everyone. When you understand your value, you choose to love, not to depend. And someone who truly loves you will never ask you to abandon yourself for their comfort. They will love you best when you are most fully you. Are you losing yourself in any relationship right now? Are you living with someone but no longer feel space to breathe or just be? If so, take a step back, not to leave but to come home to yourself. Because only when you are whole can love become healthy. And only when you love yourself can you truly love someone else. Part 5, healing a broken heart, how to forgive yourself and others. 1, a broken heart is not just emotional, it's spiritual. Heartbreak is one of the most painful experiences a human being can endure. It's not just the end of a relationship, it's the collapse of dreams of identity, of connection. Whether it's romantic, familial, or friendship-based, losing someone you deeply care for leaves a deep emptiness. But here's what most people forget. Healing a broken heart is not just emotional, it is a spiritual process. It's the soul learning how to breathe again, after something sacred was torn. And the Buddha understood this pain. That's why he didn't teach us to avoid sorrow. He taught us how to walk through it with mindfulness and compassion. 2. If you need to cry, cry. In many cultures, we're told to stay strong and move on. But strength doesn't mean suppressing emotion. True strength is having the courage to feel it without judgment. Crying is not a weakness. It's how the heart releases what words cannot express. As the Buddha taught, feelings arise, feelings fade, if you let them flow without grasping. So if your heart aches, let the tears come. Not to drown in them, but to release what no longer needs to be carried. 3. Forgive yourself for not knowing better then. So often heartbreak is filled with guilt. I should have seen the signs. Why did I stay so long? Why did I push them away? But the truth is, you were doing your best with the understanding you had at the time. Blaming yourself for the past will not heal it. Forgiveness starts with a whisper, I didn't know then what I know now. And that's okay. You're not meant to live your life perfectly. You're here to live it honestly and learn as you go. 4. Release the resentment not for them, but for your own peace. When someone hurts us deeply, our natural response is to hold on to the pain, to the anger, to the injustice. But in doing so, we carry the wound long after the person is gone, and the burden becomes ours, not theirs. The Buddha taught holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it, you are the one who gets burned. So forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the grip of suffering. Say to yourself, I release this pain not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace. 5. Understand that separation is part of life's design. One of the Buddha's core teachings is anicca impermanence. Everything we love, everything we fear, will eventually change, end, or pass away. That includes the people we hold dear. The Buddha often reminded his disciples, we must be separated from all that is dear to us. This isn't meant to make us fearful, it's meant to make us grateful, to cherish what we have while it's here, to love more fully and hold more lightly. And when separation comes, as it inevitably does, we grieve with eyes open. We mourn without losing ourselves. We bow to the impermanence and continue walking. 6. Gently reduce your attention to painful thoughts. Healing a heart doesn't mean forgetting the person or erasing the past. It means slowly reducing the attention you give to painful memories. At first, they come often, especially when you're alone. But you can practice this. When the memory arises, don't push it away, just notice it. Then gently return to the present. Focus on your breath, on your feet, on the light in the room. Give more energy to what is here than to what is gone. Little by little, those thoughts will fade, not because you forced them, but because you stopped feeding them. 7. Trust that you will love and be whole again. Even in the middle of heartbreak, something sacred remains untouched. That is your capacity to love. That is your inner wholeness. Love was never something someone gave you, it was always inside of you. What you gave away was never lost, it lives in your ability to feel, to care, to try again. The Buddha taught that pain is inevitable, but ongoing suffering, is optional. And healing is not a straight line, it's a spiral. Some days will be bright, others heavy, but you are healing, even when it doesn't feel like it. You will smile again. You will trust again. You will feel safe inside your own heart again. Final reflection for this part. When your heart is broken, cry, forgive, learn. Let your tears water the seeds of your future happiness. Let go of who hurt you. Let go of who you thought you had to be. Return to yourself softer, wiser, still worthy of love. Part 6. Death and Impermanence. How remembering death can help you love yourself more deeply. 1. We fear death, but it holds the key to living fully. Most people avoid talking about death. It's uncomfortable. It feels dark. Even in close families, we tiptoe around the topic as if speaking about death will somehow invite it in. But the Buddha taught the opposite. He encouraged his followers to reflect on death daily, not to become morbid or pessimistic, but to awaken, to see life clearly, to stop wasting time, to love more deeply, starting with ourselves. 2. The Buddha's practice. I am subject to death, I cannot escape it. One of the daily meditations taught by the Buddha is called Maranasati, mindfulness of death. It is simple and profound. You repeat gently, I am subject to death. I cannot avoid death. Everything I love will one day change. Everything I am will one day dissolve. This isn't meant to frighten you. It's meant to free you. Because when you realize life is short, you stop wasting it on what doesn't matter and you return to what does. 3. Remembering death helps us let go of anger and resentment. Think about this. If today were your last day, would you still stay mad at that person? Would you still punish yourself for mistakes from years ago? When we remember that our time is finite, we suddenly gain clarity. We forgive not because people deserve it, but because we no longer want to carry unnecessary weight. We treat ourselves with kindness not out of indulgence, but because we realize how fleeting this life truly is. In this light, forgiveness becomes an act of wisdom, not just morality. 4. Death reminds us to love ourselves now, not someday. So many of us delay self-love. We say, I'll love myself when I lose weight. I'll take care of myself after this busy season. I'll rest when I retire. I'll be proud of myself once I achieve more. But what if that someday never comes? The Buddha's wisdom cuts through illusion. What must be done, do it now. For death does not wait. There is no perfect moment to begin loving yourself. There is only this one. 5. Death awakens our priorities and quiets the noise. When you truly contemplate death, you realize most of what we worry about is irrelevant. Will it matter in the end how many people liked your post? Will it matter if you made everyone happy but lost your peace? What will matter is, did you live with presence? Did you love without regret? Did you honor your body, your spirit, your truth? Death isn't the end of everything, it's the end of illusion, and in that clarity we find life. 6. A simple practice. Look in the mirror each morning and remember. This is a beautiful Buddhist reflection you can do in under 1 minute. Each morning, stand in front of your mirror. Look gently at your reflection and say, today could be my last day. How can I live with wisdom and love? You don't need to fear. You just need to wake up. Wake up to the preciousness of life. Wake up to the beauty of your existence, even if it's messy. Wake up to the fact that you deserve love, not later but now. 7. Death is not the opposite of life, it is the teacher of life. To fear death is natural, but to ignore it is to waste the very life we're afraid of losing. When we sit quietly with the truth of impermanence, we realize how sacred every breath is, how fragile and beautiful each moment can be. And in that awareness, we begin to treat ourselves more gently. We speak more kindly, we move slower, we stop postponing peace. Because we finally understand life is not a guarantee. But love can happen now. Final reflection for this part. If I died today, I want my last words to myself to be, I lived honestly. I tried my best. And even when I struggled, I was still worthy of love. May this awareness soften your heart, free you from harshness, and return you to what truly matters this moment, this breath, this you. Part 7. Simple daily practices to build self-love and inner peace. 1. Self-love is not a feeling, it's a practice. Many people wait for self-love to arrive like a mood. I'll love myself when I feel better. I'll love myself when my life improves. But the truth is, self-love is not something that happens to you. It's something you practice gently and consistently, even on the days you feel unworthy. Just like brushing your teeth or making your bed, self-love grows through habit, not perfection. And the Buddha taught us whatever you frequently think and dwell upon, that will become the inclination of your mind. So let's gently retrain the mind through small sacred routines. 2. Morning ritual. Begin your day with loving kindness toward yourself. When you wake up, before reaching for your phone or rushing into plans, pause. Place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and silently repeat, today I will treat myself with kindness. No matter what happens, I am enough. I am learning, and that is more than enough. You don't need to fix yourself before loving yourself. You just need to remember you're human, and that's already beautiful. 3. Talk to yourself as you would to someone you love. Throughout the day, your mind will talk to you, often critically. You'll forget something, make a mistake, or feel tired, and the voice inside might say, "You're so stupid. Why can't you ever get it right?" In those moments, stop and ask, would I say this to a child I love? Would I speak this way to a dear friend? If not, then don't speak that way to yourself. Instead, gently shift the voice. Say, that was a hard moment, but I'm trying. I made a mistake, and that's okay. I'm still worthy of kindness. This is how compassion becomes a daily habit through conscious language. 4. Mini check-ins. Reconnect with yourself throughout the day. We often drift away from ourselves in the rush of daily life, but just 30 seconds of mindfulness can change the tone of your entire day. Set a gentle reminder on your phone or link it to daily moments like before eating, after using the restroom, when transitioning between tasks. Each time pause and ask, how am I feeling right now? What do I need emotionally or physically? Am I being gentle with myself? These little check-ins prevent emotional buildup and allow you to care for yourself in real time. 5. Create a self-love corner in your home. Choose a small space that belongs to you. It doesn't have to be big, just sacred. Place items there that remind you of peace and care. A candle, a photo of someone who loves you, a quote that inspires you, a small plant or crystal, your journal or favorite book. Sit there for even 5 minutes a day with no goal but to be with yourself. Over time, this space becomes a refuge, a place where your nervous system and heart feel safe. 6. Practice gratitude for yourself, not just for life. Gratitude is powerful, but often we only direct it outward. I'm grateful for my family, my home, my health. Try this. Before bed each night, write down or whisper, one thing I'm proud of today, one way I showed up with love, one mistake I forgive myself for. This doesn't feed your ego. It heals your wounds. It reminds your heart I am doing my best, and that is enough. 7. Loving kindness meditation. Metta just 3 minutes a day. This ancient Buddhist practice softens your heart and awakens compassion for yourself and others. Here's a simple version. Sit quietly, close your eyes, breathe slowly, silently repeat, may I be safe, may I be well, may I be happy, may I live with ease. If that feels difficult, imagine saying it to your younger self. Then when you're ready, send the same wish to others. May you be safe, may you be well, even to those you struggle with. Metta doesn't mean forgetting pain, it means remembering love. 8. End your day with forgiveness and rest. As the day closes, you may feel regret, stress, or disappointment, but instead of carrying it to sleep, try this gentle practice. Sit on your bed, place your hands on your chest, say softly, I forgive myself for all I could not do today. I thank myself for all I did do. Tomorrow is a new beginning, and then rest. Even the Buddha needed rest. Even you, with all your responsibilities and worries, deserve to close your eyes in peace. Final reflection for this part. Self-love is not a destination. It's a daily return to your own heart. It's remembering again and again, I am worthy. I am enough. Not someday, but today. These practices are not grand. They are gentle revolutions. They are how you slowly unlearn shame and relearn tenderness. Part 8, Your Inner Child. How Buddhist wisdom helps you heal the wounds from your past. We all carry an inner child who didn't feel fully loved, no matter how old you are, how successful or strong you've become. There is still a part of you, small, tender, and longing to be loved. That is your inner child. The child who was scolded, neglected, dismissed, or loved only under certain conditions. You may have forgotten the memories, but your heart never forgets. And sometimes the reason you struggle to love yourself today is because that little one inside still feels unheard, unseen, and unworthy. 2. Your inner child doesn't need you to be perfect just to be present. One of the most profound Buddhist truths is this: healing doesn't come from fixing yourself. It comes from being fully present with yourself, even in your pain. When you pause, breathe deeply, and place your hand over your heart, then whisper to that younger version of yourself, hey, little one, you were never wrong. You deserved love. Something shifts, the pain softens, the heart opens, and healing quietly begins. 3. Your anger, anxiety, or self-doubt today may be echoes from childhood. When you overreact, when you feel paralyzed by fear, when you exhaust yourself trying to be perfect. Pause and ask, is this really me today? Or is my inner child crying out from the past? Because often anger is the scream of a child who wasn't listened to. Fear of rejection is rooted in early moments of shame. Overworking may be a desperate attempt to earn love once withheld. Mindfulness allows us to witness these emotions, not judge them, not suppress them, but tend to them like a wise guardian finally coming home. 4. Be a friend to your inner child, not just an analyst. Many of us understand our pain, but we haven't felt it through. We've analyzed our trauma, but not comforted the parts of us that lived it. Your inner child doesn't need a cold therapist. She needs a warm, patient, loving friend. Simple practices can help you reconnect. Write a letter to your younger self. Keep a childhood photo nearby. Hug yourself when emotions feel big. Close your eyes and whisper, "I'm here for you now." This is not silly. This is sacred compassion. 5. The Buddha also spoke of early roots of suffering. In many teachings, the Buddha addressed the formation of mental habits from a young age. He understood that without mindfulness, we often live as wounded children in grown-up bodies, repeating the pain of the past in our adult relationships. Buddhist wisdom teaches, when you see the root of suffering, you stop blaming and start embracing. That's why meditation and mindfulness are not escape tools. They are the path back home, back to yourself, back to the little one within, so you can become the parent you always needed. 6. Don't try to get over your past, learn to walk gently with it. Many people say, the past is behind me. I need to be strong now. But the more you suppress, the more your heart shuts down. Buddhism doesn't ask us to be strong by denying pain. It invites us to be brave enough to love our tender parts. You don't need to get over your childhood. You only need to take its hand and walk with it, day by day, breath by breath. If you can be present, gentle, and honest, that inner child will begin to smile, and you, the adult, will begin to breathe with more peace than ever before. Part 9. Forgiving yourself, the deepest act of compassion. 1. You may forgive others, but struggle to forgive yourself. Have you ever blamed yourself for something that happened a long time ago? A mistake, a wrong decision, words that hurt someone. Others may have forgotten, but you still remember. And every time it returns, your chest tightens, part regret, part shame. As if you're saying deep down, I don't deserve peace. This is a quiet wound many people carry, forgiving the world, but punishing themselves. 2. In Buddhism, forgiveness is not forgetting, it's laying the burden down. The Buddha never asked us to ignore our mistakes or justify them blindly. He taught us to see them clearly, acknowledge them gently, and release them wisely. Forgiveness in Buddhist practice means not letting the past continue to poison the present. Yes, you were once unskillful. You were hurting. You acted out of ignorance. But that does not mean you must keep sentencing yourself over and over. 3. Self-punishment doesn't help you grow, it only drains you. Many people think if I forgive myself, I'll become lazy or careless. But in truth, those who constantly punish themselves are often stuck. Not because they're not trying, but because they believe they are bad and unworthy of love. And when you believe you're broken, you live from that belief instead of healing from love. Those who forgive themselves with compassion often develop a deeper motivation to live kindly and responsibly. 4. Forgiving yourself doesn't mean denying your mistakes, it means learning with kindness. You can say to yourself, yes, I made a mistake. Yes, I wish I had done things differently, but I am learning, I am growing, and I do not need to hate myself to become better. This takes practice. Every time you feel the urge to shame yourself, pause, place a hand over your heart, and whisper, I am trying. I deserve peace. 5. If you've suffered because of your mistake, you've already changed. One sign of spiritual maturity is this: to feel pain over your wrongdoings but not let that pain become a life sentence. If you feel remorse, if you've learned, if you genuinely want to do better, then you are no longer who you used to be. The one who fell into the hole is no longer here. The one who walks mindfully forward is someone new. Give yourself that chance. Let your heart breathe again freely. 6. Forgiveness is the gift you give yourself. No one can turn back time, but everyone can choose to live differently starting right now. Try this one quiet evening, sit down and reflect. What are you still blaming yourself for? What have you learned from it? If a 10-year-old version of you made that same mistake, what would you say to them? Now read that back and say to yourself, I forgive myself. I don't have to be perfect to deserve compassion. This is the most powerful act of kindness you can offer your own soul. Part 10. The present moment is where self-love begins. 1. You've searched for love in many places, but never paused to offer it here. You may have looked for love in relationships, in praise and success, in being needed, in being enough for others. But how often have you paused simply to say, I'm here for myself right now? Not in the future, not when you've healed everything, but this very moment as you are. That's where self-love begins, not in perfection, but in presence. 2. Buddhist wisdom teaches true peace is only possible now. The Buddha taught that the present moment is the only real refuge. When your mind is pulled into regrets of the past or fears of the future, you suffer. But when you return to this breath, this moment, you return home. And when you are home in your body, your breath, your awareness, you can meet yourself with kindness. You can say, I'm safe now. I'm not alone. I am enough not someday, but today. 3. Most of our pain comes from resisting what is. Think of how often we suffer by wishing things were different. I should have been better. They shouldn't have left me. I'm not where I should be. But resistance keeps us locked in shame. Self-love instead whispers, this is where I am. And even here, I choose to be gentle. 4. You can practice self-love breath by breath. It doesn't have to be grand. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. Self-love can begin right now with the smallest things. Taking one mindful breath, placing a hand on your heart and smiling inside, saying it's okay when emotions rise, looking at yourself with softer eyes. These are sacred acts. Each one says, I choose myself here now. 5. This moment is not just a passing second, it's a doorway. You don't have to wait for another day, another version of yourself, or another person's approval. Every time you return to the now, you meet the only person who's never left you, you. And when you are truly here, you'll realize there is nothing missing in this moment. There is no one else you need to be. You are not behind, you are not broken. And here is enough. Loving yourself is the beginning of all compassion. Maybe you clicked on this video because your heart felt tired. Maybe you've spent years being kind to others but harsh with yourself. Or maybe deep down you've carried a quiet question, am I truly worthy, just as I am? Let me tell you gently, yes, you are. Not because you've never made mistakes, not because you've done everything right, but because you're human. And being human means being both light and shadow, capable of falling and rising again. The Buddha never asked us to be perfect. He asked us to be awake, awake to our pain, awake to our worth, awake to the love we've withheld from ourselves for too long. Every act of gentleness toward yourself, every breath taken with awareness, every moment you choose kindness over judgment is a step back home to your own heart. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. You don't have to fix everything before you're allowed to rest. The truth is, you are already enough. You are already whole. Even when you forget, even when you stumble, that truth remains. So begin again, not tomorrow, but today. Not with grand promises, but with something simple. A hand over your heart. A deep breath. A quiet whisper. I will not abandon myself. I am learning to love the one who's always been here, me. Because loving yourself is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of all true compassion, the beginning of peace, the beginning of a life lived with presence, meaning, and joy. And from that love you will shine.